Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We're going to do now the Maimer of Arba'ah Rosh Hashanah, which comes in direct. It discusses the Maimer of Basi Legani, which the Rebbe said in connection to Yud Shvat in Tavshim Hey, and subsequently the Rebbe said in this Maimer, and actually the next Maimer of the Shabbos Yisrael, discussing this idea that we discussed in the second half of Basi Legani, which spoke about the fact that there are Tzimtzumim, contractions, concentrations, even before the famous first Tzimtzum. So let's go right into it. This was in the Farbrengen of the night of Tu Bishvat, of the Chamishos of Bishvat, Rosh Hashanah Leilonis, and the first thing that the Rebbe did in the Farbrengen was the Maimer. Arba'ah Rosh Hashanim Heim Chulu Rosh Hashanah Leilon Chulu Beis Hillel Eimrim B'Chamisha Bei Bishvat. So the Mishnah says, and begins the tractate of Rosh Hashanah by saying there are 4 Rosh Hashanahs. There's the Rosh Hashanah for trees, that's the fourth one, and Beis Hillel says that is on the 15th day within the month of Shvat. The reason why it says on the 15th, because the first opinion is Beis Shammai, it says it's on Rosh Chodesh, the first day of Shvat. If you do a diuk, Rabbi said in the Torah, but Teres Rosh Drushim Shalach Reza, and we know what our Rabbeim taught us when they specifically looked at this idea, starting with Alter Rebbe and Likutei Torah, and the Middle Rebbe and Teres Rosh, and the subsequent discourses. But regarding Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, similarly to Rosh Chodesh, which is the head of the month, it's called the head of the year, not the beginning of the year. Called over in the holy tongue, everything is precise. It's not just the beginning of the year, a new part of time. It's like the head, just like the head of a body. It has within it the central nervous, the central controlling of everything in the body. It has the life of all of the limbs of the body. And afterwards, even each and every particular limb, which is in its spot. Every part of the body is led and controlled by the brain and the intellect, which is in the head. We understand also then regarding the 4 Rosh Hashanahs, and now the Rebbe enumerates that which it says in the Mishnah. Echad ben Nisan, the first day of Nisan, which is when a new year would begin for kings, and it's also for the first one of the 3 festivals the Mishnah discusses there. It's regarding, let's say, offerings that one pledges to bring when the new cycle begins, etc. Or the first of Elul, which would be Rosh Hashanah for the tithes of animals. And Echad b'Tishrei v'Chamisha Osa b'Shvat, the first of Tishrei and the 15th of Shvat. Everything all of the days of the year are set in their head of the year. The head of the year then includes everything. So each one of these categories then includes all the subsequent days of the year. And then all of these days are really led, so to speak, by the the foundation, the head of the year, and each thing it flows to that date, to that and the connection that it had to the head of the year, and the Rebbe will discuss it shortly. So each and every individual day in the year is connected then to the Rosh Hashanah. And therefore you see the way one acts throughout the year, that it's included in it the way they were inspired, so to speak, on Rosh Hashanah. The way Rosh Hashanah is, that's the way it affects the rest of the days of the year. Like Rosh Hashanah, one takes resolutions and one is inspired, etc. Nevertheless, even though everything that comes throughout the year is included at first in one day, in the day of Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, from this we understand that the way the days later on in the year are included in the Rosh Hashanah, it must be in a different way than the day they're experienced throughout the year. So for instance, when we're talking about the 10th of Shvat, how was the 10th of Shvat and the 15th of Shvat, the 16th of Shvat, whatever day it may be, how was it included in Rosh Hashanah? So Rosh Hashanah was just something that inspires every other day, but it's certainly in a different format. Then you have the every day the way it plays out. Shasham nimtza kol ha'inyan lo yida kifi shenimshach b'im pratim b'meshech Hashanah o b'shleimusei. In the day of Rosh Hashanah, everything is included too. Not the way it will be played out during the year, and nevertheless, it is included in the head of the year. And it's there in its entirety, but not the way we have it and experience it. So just generally speaking, the Rebbe says, and here the Rebbe refers back to what he taught and spoke about in the Maimer of Basi Legani, and here he explains this now in another on another level, in another way of looking at it. For this you have to have the idea of the Tzimtzum, the idea of a concentration, where everything is concentrated into one thing. While derech maimer azal, and like the sages teach us, Tzimtzum shchinasei ben ba'adei ha'orin. So now the Rebbe brings the example of the way it is in space, and then the way that he discussed here is the way it is in time. That's where the Rosh Hashanah is in time. Now he's going to show where it is in space, and then he's going to talk about creation. So our sages teach us that God concentrated the Shekhinah, the way He rests, between the sticks that carried the Orin. They're called Badim, the long sticks that were in the ark, in the holy ark. So between them, God concentrated. That was the greatest manifestation of His Shekhinah on earth. That was in the Ark, which was in the Holy of Holies, in the Holy Temple, in the Beis HaMikdash, in Yerushalayim. And there, the Talmud tells us that there are 10 levels of holiness in space. And within the temple area, there are the highest levels of them. And within the temple itself, there's the Holy of Holies is the holiest spot. Outside of the Holy of Holies is the second holiest spot. Then outside of that is the third holiest spot, and the fourth holiest spot, etc., etc. The whole world is the 10th spot, because we can make everywhere holy. Then the rest 9 are in the Holy Land. In Jerusalem, etc., the Temple Mount, within the Temple Mount, the Temple area, within the Temple itself, etc., etc., until you get to the Holy of Holies. So, God concentrated His Shekhinah between the there must be a fancy word for badim, but they're the 2 sticks of the ark. So in order for there to be the flow and the spread of the Shekhinah in the whole world, that the Shekhinah should rest and be enclosed in the lowest realms of the world, everywhere in the world, because God is everywhere, and you could bring out godliness everywhere. But in order for that to happen, there's one spot that it's really concentrated or focused totally. So we know that God is everywhere, but how does it get there? So each spot is the way it is, the way it's just generic land, and the way it is. Nevertheless, it could have a flow of the Shekhinah, of the resting of God. Why? Because of this concentrated holiness that there is in the Holy of Holies. V'hainu shamok mishom came to Yosef Alpikin Yochel Kabel Some Shachos Shechina Harei Al Yidei Inin Tzimtzum. This comes through this concentration. Tzimtzum Shechinose bin Badi Horn, that he concentrated his resting between the sticks of the ark. Bekei the Shakadosh the Holy of Holies Veidei Zenasis of Shorisham Shachos Shechina Kif Shabol Achre Tzimtzum Badi Horn Tuchel Hiskabel Chomokum Shabeilam. And through this, the ability that the Shekhinah should be drawn and flow after it was already within the confines of between the two sticks of the ark. Then it could be received in every place on earth. And just like it is in space, so also it is in regards to time. We have to focus and hyper-focus on Rosh Hashanah, concentrate in the way we serve God, and God gives us that opportunity on the head of the year in Rosh Hashanah, where God says, you will coronate me and make me have dominion over you and be the king over you, and like all these things that we've discussed in the season of Rosh Hashanah. Similarly, in the way the tree gets its nourishment, it changes on the 15th of Shvat. So all the trees, all fruit that grew before then has to be tied to the previous year. And so the end is just like it's a fiscal year. There's also a new year for trees, and everything from that grows after the 15th of Shvat is tied for the upcoming year. So it goes the same way. And after this concentration, then it's able to be spread out into the rest of the subsequent days of the year. Now that Rebbe says this is how it is in the Tzimtzum of creation that we discussed earlier in the Maimer Basi Legani, commission is partly the Yom Hailulam, the Maimer that was given for the yard site of the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe's Rebbe, the 10th of Shvat, the Basi Legani, that we learned last week and the week before. The Isa Beitz Chaim, it quotes the Eitz Chaim of the Arizal. First, the infinite light was the only thing that was there. Therefore, it filled everything. There was no room for anything else. So the term that's used is that it fills up the whole cholol, every part of space, even though space is not yet created. That's part of the idea that the mere fact that there is something that's negating further creation is proof that there was already something that brought that about. That was the Tzimtzum that's earlier. So therefore there was no place for any existence of any worlds. Then God made the great concentration, and then He gave the ray, the short line of light that began to allow and to purvey the godliness according to however much each world would be able to handle. And as we learned, He had to sort of move aside to make space, and that was the concentration. And through this, all of the worlds came into existence, till this lowest world. The Rebbe says, we also explained earlier in the Maimer, like we just mentioned, the mere fact that there was this light that was filling the space, which is connected to the creation of worlds, albeit in a negative way, meaning that there's no room for other worlds, but it means the discussion, but there's no room for it. This all came after there was already several concentrations to even get to that stage. And as we said there in the Maimer, that God, as soon as He starts to contemplate and consider a creation, this is already at Tzimtzum, because it's leaving its pristine, the pristine part of godliness called Atmos, which has in it, like we learned in that mimer, ability, but the ability hasn't been used. Now, once it goes into motion, so to speak, that's already at Tzimtzum, even before the inability for other worlds to exist and the requirement that a great Tzimtzum happens. Because there are several stages of Tzimtzum. And the Rebbe says, this is as it's explained particularly in the terminology of the Alter Rebbe, the Middle Rebbe, and here the Rebbe mentions the Rabbi, which is also very special in and of itself, with a special bonus. Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek Admur Marash, the fourth Rebbe, Admur Mashab, the fifth Rebbe, Nishmosei Nobala Ilula, the one of the master of the yard site, meaning the Rebbe's Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, the sixth Rebbe. Ukapfish and Vairim Shagam Bechol Tzimtzum Yeshnam Kama V'Kama Pratam, as all the Rebbeim explain, that within each and every concentration there are also several details, many details. Ukamuva Behaoris Amur Lezeir Reish Pashas Truma, and like it's also brought in the notations of my Holy Father. Here the Rebbe quotes his father on his notations on the Zohar, the beginning of Pashas Truma. Bebi or Maimon HaZohar, explaining the passage of the Zohar. The Zohar itself brings several terms for a singular Tzimtzum. There the Rebbe's father explains that each one of these terms is talking about another format of Tzimtzum, so it's the same idea. Like the Rebbe says that his father explains in detailed fashion, albeit in the Kabbalistic terminology. Just parenthetically, the day of the 15th of Shvat had many significant things happened to the Rebbe's father on this day, including connected with his original imprisonment in 1939 and in other milestones. And in 1939, if I'm not mistaken, he spoke then, he addressed the people, explaining that although it's here frozen, cold, and icy, and we're celebrating nevertheless the New Year for trees, and he says, where is it blossoming, what kind of flowering, and what's going on, but we know that in the Holy Land that it is that way, and therefore it's going to come about to be this way. And then shortly thereafter he was taken, etc., as is well known in his biography, which now is not the time to get into that, but it's interesting to note that the Rebbe brings his father in the Pnima, in the actual Maimer here, on the 15th of Shvat. Vahine, which in most Mamorim the Rebbe's father explains so many facets of the Torah, and even though the Rebbe brings in every Maimer from other Rabbeim, the Rebbe brings from the Rabbeim implicitly and explicitly, and the same with his father. Usually when he brings his father, it's implicit in a lot of places, although he does quote him from time to time, and also in the notes, especially in the edited Memorim. But it is special when the Rebbe brings him and quotes his father in the Maimer. According to the passage of the sages that say that God created the world in the beginning, the first word in the Torah is Bereshis. So the sages tell us that the word Bereshis means the head, and that refers to three things. Yisrael, the Jewish people, Israel. Torah is also called Reshis, and then the whole idea of the creation there in the world. So Bereshis, the world was created for Israel. That is called Reshis. Hainu Reshis calling Yonim Bishvil Yisrael. The head of everything is for Israel. How they move on? Shekol Inyan Ribuyat Tzimtzum Bishvil Yisrael. From this we understand that all of these many concentrations, Tzimtzumim, is for Yisrael. As it says in Tanya, then the chapter 49, regarding the purpose of this Tzimtzum. The reason that God lowered himself and concentrated himself and made himself palatable and reachable on this lowest world is out of his love for the people here in the lowest realms, to elevate them to God, to godliness, like it says in Bab Metzia, regarding things that may be tough to do. But love brings about and pushes aside any hindrance that there might be for an expression of the love, because love is a cause and an impetus to make things happen. And therefore, when we contemplate and think about the details of these concentrations, like the Mittler Rebbe explains in his Shar HaYichud, the Mittler Rebbe says that you have to also contemplate in the details of these things as best you could. But it's in a way that we have to see it within ourselves and how it works in our own lives, in our own psyche, in our own flesh, so to speak. The contemplation is as it is within the person. You are called, every person is called Adam by the name of the first person. And why is it called Adam? Because it's Adam Elyon. The word Adam has the connotation of similarity. We're similar to the supernal being who created us. And through this we can see God and godliness, when we realize how we are, how we tick. And now here the Rebbe already mentioned the other Rebbe, and now he's going to mention and he mentioned his father, his holy father, and now he's going to mention the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid. So, the Baal Shem Tov explains in Kesser Shem Tov, שהקדוש ברוך הוא עשה כמה צמצומים דרך כמה אילומס כדי שיהיה אחדות עם אדם שלא יכול לסבול בירוסי וכו', that the Holy One, blessed be He, made several concentrations through several worlds, as we know how the chain of creation is, so that there should be fusion and unity, oneness with mankind, which wouldn't be able to handle the brilliance of the godliness unless it was concentrated. Through these concentrations, the person not only could now receive and accept this light, she should be fused with this light. As the Baal Shem Tov explains at length, especially in the Mamorim of the Rabbi that explain this Maimer of the Baal Shem Tov. And even more detail can be like it's explained in the Magid's books in the beginning, both in the book of the Likutei Amorim and the book of Oyer Torah. Tzimtzum Hashem Yisborach Chaviyachos Behirusai, the God may be blessed, concentrated, so to speak, his brilliance, kedimyon, and now he brings an analogy, kedimyon of hamitzamtzum esichle, like a father who concentrates his intellect, and he speaks petty little things for his small child, for his small son. Like you say, hey, sweetie, how are we doing? I mean, we speak, baby, talk to a baby, and as he grows up, we speak other things. That's and that's appropriate. And not only is it appropriate, but it's explained that's how the relationship is made. The gam kol midas maisenitis noldim ha'av, and all the way you want to play and relate to the child, and childhood things is the way the father is acting and relating to the child. And he enjoys it, and he enjoys playing a little game with his child. What we would call today an age appropriate and all these kind of things, but it's something that even though the father is up to a different level, but the father loves the child, and this is how the love is expressed, and they really do play, and he enjoys it. So he likes this childhood play, and he wants his son to enjoy it too and have pleasure from this. There's already a child, but he's a small child. And now, what is Klal Yisrael? What is the nation of Israel? We're God's child, and God now wants to come and talk to us, He wants to relate to us. He wants to have fun with us. That's why it says there's the famous verse in Roshei in chapter 11. It says that Israel is God's lad, the nar. Specifically a nar, a child, a lad. This illustrates and shows that we're small. Like it says explicitly in Deuteronomy, you are the smallest of all the nations. You are the least. But because of this itself, like it says there in that verse, in that God, that Israel is the lad and He loves them. So for this lad, God concentrates His brilliance. Like we said earlier, because it's love that pushes away other hindrances, things that would stop the expressions of love. And because of this, God concentrates all the great supernal things so that we're able to relate to Him, beginning starting from the essence of God in His pristine state, that He starts this process with these Tzimtzumim in order to relate to us. Until He's drawn down to us through several of these concentrations, through several worlds, many worlds, like the Baal Shem Tov states. This Tzimtzum brings about that now Dad has fun. God enjoys this. That's what it's about. God occupies Himself with childhood things, and He has pleasure, and He has benefit and pleasure from this. This also shows us that God is here. The Father is with the child, playing, relating. Although He's dead, although He's the Father, He concentrates Himself. He doesn't do what He does in the office, but He comes and He plays with the Son. Whatever little game, He's with Him. This is what it's about. This is all pertinent regarding our day-to-day life and action, the way we do what we're supposed to. And generally speaking, in all of our service to God, and everything that we do, in all of our deeds in this low world, there's no world lower than this. We're here with all the nitty-gritty and everything, what have you. And that's where we were placed, and that's where the lad Israel. Had Tzimtzum Chulum. For him, God made all this concentration of making God being Rosh Hashanim. And now the Rebbe circles back to what he started with and how it is in time, with the 4 Rosh Hashanah. And the way they're drawn, the Rosh Hashanah is drawn into the whole world, is the concentration, the focus that we have on the day of that Rosh Hashanah. Until the day of Rosh Hashanah for the trees. That's the 4th one that's enumerated there in the Mishnah. But I say the order that something is brought about is also a lesson, teaches us something. Everything's particular, everything's specific, everything has significance. And therefore, the fact that the Rosh Hashanah for trees comes last, it's the final one in the Mishnah, is also significant and has a lesson to teach us. It's pertinent in the lesson that it teaches us to our deeds and how we serve God. What is it about? So Rosh Hashanah for trees is connected with, like it says in the verse, that man is the tree of the field. The Koyal Bnei Yisrael, that's a reference to the children of Israel. Atam Kareim Adam, you're called Adam again. Adam, because we're Hashem Adam La'elyin, because we're our similarity to the supernal one of Bnei Yisrael Gufa, and amongst the children of Israel specifically, Koy Ha'odam Eitz Hasod Al Talmid Chacham. It's really a reference to a sage who studies, a wise sage, so a wise student, like the Gemara says, in reference to this verse, Shazehu in Yisrael v'Torah, and that's the whole idea. Everybody studies Torah. That's Yisrael and Torah. B'shvil Yisrael shenikra Torah shenikra. Like we said earlier, this whole idea of rashis, these three things all come together. And now Mashanikra Eitz HaSoda, and that which is called the tree of the field. Why is a person called the tree of the field? Because his main service, the way he has to grow, is, and pun intended, the main service that a person serves God is in his attributes, in his characteristics. With the person's characteristics, you serve God in its ultimate sense, in the fullest way possible. But regarding intellect, and we said this in a few more back, that will be when Mashiach comes, we'll be able to serve God more in an intellectual sense, because we'll be able to see more of the godliness and understand it. But till then, till Mashiach comes, we talk more about our attributes and characteristics and how our feelings and emotions, etc. That's like the vegetable kingdom, the world, the world of growth and of nurturing and nourishment, etc. In our deeds, in our actions, in our service to God, we have to continuously grow and go higher and higher in holiness. To me, that's continuous growing, constant growing. So in other words, our attributes and our emotions, our characteristics can always improve and get better and better and holier and holier and higher and higher. That's why we're compared to a tree. For this we have a day in the year that's called the head of the year. So that from it then it flows that we're able to have every single day a little bit of growth. And in this growth it should be recognizable that this is a person who's a tree of the field who flourishes. It's recognizable that he is similar to the supernal one. For this reason he's called an Adam, person. He continuously grows in this idea, in these improving measures. And this hastens and brings closer, even more so, the true full redemption, the ultimate redemption shows you. Then we'll have the fulfillment of the prophecy which Amos says, that from when you plow to when you you harvest will be a very short time in between. It'll come very quickly. Because the growth will happen so quickly and in a great haste. This happens also through our quick and great work and what we do to serve God with alacrity. And like the Alter Rebbe, he praises and glorifies the idea of alacrity in Igeres HaKodesh and Tanya. Shehi Amda Lamdu Chulu. That's what held us in good stead. And this we affect that the truthful redemption should be even in a very quick fashion, very hastily. Aruim and Anishmaya, and then we'll go with the clouds of the heaven. The main thing is our deeds, that we should all do what we have to. Which be redemption in this physical world. Actually, so be a diamond in a sense that you should be able to touch it and feel it. And like the promise in the prophecy, where it says that in Isaiah 40, that the glory of God will be so revealed that flesh will see it. We already learned this in the previous Memorim. You won't even need eyes. The flesh itself will be able to see it. It will be so apparent. The flesh will be able to feel and to perceive and feel the strength of the one that affects in that which is affected, meaning God and the world that He creates. All this will be speedily in our days, actually. So, through the hastening of the truthful redemption, through our righteous Mashiach, done very speedily for all of us together. And everyone should be inspired to take these days that are coming from Yud Shvat, from the Yom Hilula, and then take the inspiration to the rest of the year to continue to grow from strength to strength.